week 15 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few tight ends I have as sleepers this week. The first tight end, Isaiah Likely of the Baltimore Ravens. Isaiah Likely, he's out there in 89% of fantasy leagues. And over the last couple weeks, he's taken over Mark Andrews' snaps and even his route participation at times. So Likely all season long, besides the last couple weeks, he really has been non-existent in the passing game and banged up as well for this Raven team. Week 12 versus the Jets, a catch, 10 yards. Week 13 versus the Bengals, 5 catches, 95 yards, a fumble loss, 6 targets. In week 14 versus the Steelers, 4 catches, 25 yards, a touchdown on 6 targets. So this week, a great matchup. Once again, at the same Cincinnati Bengal team he versed a couple weeks ago, we had 12.5 fantasy points. And this Bengal team, we know they can't stop anyone. They do give up the most fantasy points to tight ends on the season. And like I said, he's the number 2 option in this passing game right now behind Zay Flowers, where Mark Andrews, he's pretty much been a non-existent playmaker for this Raven team a majority of the season. So Likely, like I said, a good sleeper option this week. The next tight end staying in the same game, Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals. So T. Higgins, I don't think it's looking great. He's going to play. I know he came back in last week's game with that concussion and found the end zone, but right now very limited to start the week, and it's his second concussion in a couple weeks here for the Cincinnati Bengal team. So Gesicki had a breakout game last week, but we've seen this a lot throughout Gesicki's career. If it was with the Dolphins or the Patriots, he'll have one big game and not do much for weeks. But like I said, if Higgins is out especially, he'll be a big target in the red zone. Week 12 versus the Patriots, 4 catches, 35 yards, 6 targets. Week 13 at Baltimore, 2 catches, 19 yards. And last week, a big game at Buffalo, 6 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets. So like I said, Mike Gesicki, he's been a big target. And with Joe Burrow back in the lineup over the last couple weeks as well, it's going to make everyone better and easier for this offense to flow and get things going. Even though I did think Joe Flacco did a decent job filling in for Burrow before he returned for multiple weeks. And the final tight end, Colby Parkinson of the Los Angeles Rams. So Parkinson's been a nice sleeper over the last few weeks here for this Ram team, and especially when they get down in the red zone, where obviously all the coverage is rolled to Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams that down the field. So the last few weeks for Parkinson, 3 out of 4 games, double-digit fantasy points. Week 11 versus Seattle, 2 catches, 14 yards, a touchdown. Week 12 versus Tampa Bay, 4 catches, 41 yards, a touchdown. Week 13 at the Panthers, 4 catches, 27 yards. And week 14 at the Cardinals, 3 catches, 32 yards, and a touchdown. So this week's going to be a high-scoring game. Most likely Detroit Lions coming in with both these teams we know could put a lot of points on the board early and often. And I think we could see more of the same with Parkinson. Yeah, he gets like 3 catches, 35 yards, and a touchdown. But that obviously still would be a productive day in PPR leagues for fantasy owners. If you need a sleeper, he's out there in 97% of fantasy leagues. That's a few tight ends I have as sleepers for week 15 of the fantasy football season.